I was just going to add, and as we move through the design development process, is the architects will develop what we refer to as a color board, and they'll start putting down the fabrics and standards that the district has chosen, and we'll put them up for display so that the school can start getting a sense of the types of materials and stuff like that will be used. So that'll go further on during the design development process.
Mrs. Reagan?
Yes, actually, I just wanted to follow up on one other thing. You mentioned the two-story buildings at South and building elevators to get students to the second floor. I get this question all the time. Why are we considering building elevators? Could you explain why we do need to make sure there's access to that second floor? It's not just being serendipitous and picking to do that and saying, let's throw an elevator in there, but it's really a serious requirement.
Yes, it is absolutely a requirement. These elevators is no other accessible means of approach to those buildings on the second floor, and that will satisfy. An elevator is absolutely required by code for the modernization process of these buildings.
And it was not required when the buildings were originally built.
Correct. The existing conditions under the code that they were approved under, it was an approved condition at that time.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Steffen?
Well, I don't know. I guess I kind of have a ADA thing here. But it's probably from the other perspective. You mentioned that, an elevator is a quite costly enterprise, not only to build, but to maintain and keep up on a yearly basis, correct?
Correct.
You mentioned something that you're looking to alternatives, one elevator and a walkway to access the other buildings or something like that. So you are looking to other alternatives to minimize that expense, because that could wipe out a budget real fast.
Right. We're absolutely looking to make sure that we're going to meet all the code requirements as well as all the budgetary requirements.
Okay.
And the budgetary requirements are going to be that evaluation comparison between options that we're going to have. We're also going to be looking at it. There are certain travel distances that are going to be absolutely maintained and are code required. And so all of those compounded together will form the ultimate solution.
Okay. All right. But I don't think anybody here wants to end down, and elevators aren't going to be the thing that does it, but end down the road where all of a sudden we planned X dollars, and because we spent a little over here, we run out over here. So I just keep that in mind, the big picture.
At this point, Mr. President, if I might make a comment, I think we just need to remind the board also, although this might be somewhat of a sore subject, that not all ADA requirements were met under the old Measure R. So to get our approvals that are necessary now for the amount of work that's going to be done, DSA has been cooperating with us, which I'm very thankful for, in allowing us to roll those ADA requirements that were not met under Measure R into this bond, and then allowing us to take care of those as we go from school to school. So we are appreciative to DSA for taking that position, but at the same time, there were ADA requirements which were not met and which we must meet as we're going from school site to school site.
Dr. Ernst, did you? No? Okay. Just to follow up on that, just thinking out loud here, of course, we want to comply with ADA requirements, but if the district somehow got away with it last time, why wouldn't we be able to not do it this time?
Well, in fact, we really didn't get away with it. And the bottom line is that the Department of State Architect's office can at any point stop us from doing any construction because those ADA requirements weren't met. That's why I indicated that they are cooperating with us, because they could have gone the other direction and required us to do all ADA projects first before we were allowed to touch any other project in the district.
All right. Any other questions regarding South High School? Yes,
Just to clarify, when we're talking about ADA in this instance, we're not talking about daily attendance.
Talking about the American Disabilities Act.
So it's accessibility of our buildings that is absolutely required now.
Correct.
Thank you.
All right, Walteria. Oh,
Question in the audience.
Why don't we hold off questions from the public after the entire presentation, just to have some sense of continuity? Thank you. Walteria Elementary School.
Walteria. We had our first scoping meeting March 10th at the district, and it was also attended by district staff as well as site administration staff, very much the same thing. We are going to then focus again on code issues. I'll repeat myself on these, but code issues, there are going to be other drainage, irrigation issues, other items like that. As we move through the site, there were some particulars that were noted there, and I'll cover the broad school first and perhaps coming back into some of the interior functions as well. We're looking at, probably one of the first things that was brought up was the entry, the drop-off situations on there. Another that was brought up was having school kids come in early before perhaps the official school time, and how do you both deal with that, and that was an issue that was on site. There were issues of how the school is currently configured. There are 5 kindergarten classes, 1 swing space kindergarten as well, so you got a total of 6. As the school was originally configured, it really has operationally 2 kindergarten classes that are up towards the front there. So right now they have kindergarten scattered throughout the campus, and as a result they have their kindergarten play areas that have to be, the kids have to be walked down, and there really aren't correctly identified areas for those. So that was another issue that had come up on the site configuration. There are portables, 4 of which will be replaced on the site right now, 4 that exist that will be replaced, as well as the addition of 1 new portable on site for a music and arts classroom. There will be on site, there will be the covered walkway additions out there as well. This in addition to the technological infrastructure backbone that we provided there, as well as considerations for the library and computer lab functions. So we were looking at it first as a campus. How does the campus function? What things, as you're going to be moving the students and teachers out of their classrooms, bringing them back in, how do we perhaps address some of the structure of the classroom configurations in terms of grade configurations to support the curriculum, and looking at where we have playgrounds and how those can be broken up appropriately. Looking at also providing water and drainage from sinks to existing portables to current locations, and if those are going to be supported by the site infrastructure that we currently have, or if there's going to be some reconfiguration. What that means is we have portables that are right there, you see on the north of the end of the site. They may not be in an appropriate space for the water drainage to occur, taking it out to the site for the utilities. Let's see. Other issues on site, looking at the hard courts, the resurfacing out there, field drainage, there's a number of issues out there, as well as looking at the parking entry, restriping, whatever we can do there to assist in that area as well. Bringing that back around to the interior, again, we'd be looking at primarily the function of the classrooms, bringing in, making sure that we're improving light in the classrooms with improved lighting fixtures, as well as addressing improved conditions through replacing the existing glazing there with improved energy efficiency. All these things working towards creating a more efficient classroom, flooring, painting, other finishes, taking it out again to the exterior, similar approach out there, repainting, looking at improving the fixtures. Obviously, there's a lot of, you look at the covered walkways, drainage, gutters, downspouts, all in very poor condition, things that would be improving out there. And then looking at the approach to the school. How does one enter the school? Making sure that the school has a good, strong identity. And that was something that we heard as a priority in looking at how possibly reconfiguration around the entry would also occur. And let's see, building systems, obviously, we're going to looking at the mechanical MEP upgrades, mechanical, plumbing, electrical upgrades across the sites as well. So we'll turn that back over to questions perhaps we have on the site.
Yes, Mr. Steffen.
Sorry, did you say you were going to take 4 portables away?
There will be a replacement of 4 portables that currently exist.
Oh, the old beat-up ones, new, not beat-up ones kind of thing? I mean, we'll just replacing, we're not losing classrooms, I guess.
We are not losing classrooms.
Okay.
There will be a net gain of 1 classroom on site.
Okay, thank you.
So your PowerPoint here indicates that you're submitting plans to the state architects by the end of September 2009. So assuming construction begins sometime in 2010, what is the projected period of construction until completion?
It's about like another 9-month process once we have DSA approvals. And most of these, they range from 9 to 12 months, depending on the sequencing.
9 months
9 to
from
12 months of actual construction from the start of construction.
from start to completion?
Yes.
Okay. Mrs. Reagans?
And to follow up on that, we'll be sensitive to the school year when we're looking at that, so they're not moving, in the middle of a semester or
Yeah, we look at it. We look at when
trimester,
start testing is happening, when we're doing demolition, we really look at the calendar and work with the school principals and making sure that it makes sense. I mean, we're
Yeah,
not
well,
going to
because
move.
I'm sure you know, it's not teachers' favorite things to be moving in and out of their classrooms, so as much as we
Exactly.
can minimize that pain, the better.
Yeah, we'll do our
Thanks.
best.
Any other questions?
Just one.
regarding- Yes.
So the projects, not counting necessarily the fields, but the modernization projects, Magruder and South and Walteria, at some point are going to be simultaneous. They're going to be going on at the same time. Okay, all right. Okay, I just want to make sure. And this is this goes into the first phase of our bond sales.
Correct.
It's a portion of our bonds.
Right, and it won't only be those, but it will also be the new construction also.
Okay.
And as with the other schools, we have site committees, parents providing input as to the design and
Absolutely. Yeah. Both schools have been an excellent site committee to work with. You have an interim principal there, Bobby Wenoff, and she has pulled together many teachers from there, as well as I think she's in touch with the community there, and I think we have a very strong group.
Any other questions regarding Walteria? Okay. New construction.
Mr. President, one
Yes.
comment before IBI starts their presentation. The one architecture group that is on the clock more than maybe the other 2 firms is IBI, which Barbara represents and will be giving a presentation tonight. But Hall Middle School is actually on the clock. Wednesday is April 1st. And Barbara has 30 months from this Wednesday for students to be walking into the new Hull Middle School. So that is her timeline to meet.
And Dr. Manning, to follow up, where does that fall in our school year then?
I believe, Mrs. Reagans, and you actually worked that out one day, I believe that comes to October.
It's close.
And in this case, since it's a brand-new school and those students will be there, we have the opportunity to actually move students at any time into their new school. Since they're already housed, and that allows us the time to be able to get the school ready and actually move students at almost any point.
I'm just turning it over to Barbara.
Thank you, Dr. Manning, for that reminder. Actually, we hope to do better. I mean, we should try and, we will certainly look to get the school complete for the students to enter at the beginning of the school year, September. Anyway, good evening, Mr. President and the board and district. Thank you. I'm Barbara Helton with IBI Group, and we've had the honor of working on your new construction projects, Hull and Fern. And I'd like to start with Hull. We've had, first of all, again, our recognition to Barry Lafferty, the principal over there. He's put together a really terrific site committee meeting. Ms. Reagan joined us in one of the initial meetings. We've had 2 full site committee meetings, and on a separate track, we've been having a subcommittee meeting with the educational staff. So in brief, I'll look at it just briefly with you on the 2 tracks. The first subcommittee, the full site committee meeting that we had, as our notes indicate here, we really looked at the site issues. There was a lot of concern over field use, transportation, traffic, how vehicles move relative to bike traffic and pedestrians, and less focus there originally with this group with the makeup and how the classrooms would be disposed. That conversation we really kept more with the educational committee. But we did, in general, everybody was very excited about the opportunity to bring a much better relationship now with indoor and outdoor space. There was a clear interest on all parties to group the school along ages 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. So I'm going to switch here just briefly to show you the site plan, and then I'll talk briefly about the discussion we've had with the educational committee. This site plan was presented at our second site committee meeting, and this is the result of many different, we brought about 3 or 4 different options to the committee that looked at different dispositions of parking. And it was the consensus of the committee that all parking should be consolidated for staff and visitors, and all ingress and egress should be off of 231st Street. We've also had within our office our transportation and our traffic engineers look at this. So this parking lot shows you conceptually the recommended distance away from Arlington Avenue, and the ingress and egress so that it does not line up with the T Street across the street from 231st. We are proposing, as you can see, a right in only and a right out. There will be 2 lanes of drop-off, and those lanes will be separate from the parking area, which the staff area can actually be coned off in the morning. There's been situations at the old Hull Middle School where parents would pull in between the traffic aisles, the parking area, and try and drop off kids additionally. So that will be coned off, so that can't happen. School entry will be directly off of the main drop-off aisles, and then we're looking at some additional discussions with the educational committee on how those groups of students will be disposed along the site. Also, there was a lot of discussion about the field area. It was recognized that AYSO has a very strong use of these fields. Those fields will be maintained. There was also very much an interest to make this a field area that really responded to the health needs of the students. And we've specifically sort of talked about a loop that would run around the site. In fact, we've looked at a loop, and it's 1/3 of a mile. That could be probably like a DG run, a running track that also can be for walkers and runners. So as we begin to progress with the field design, we know that those are issues that will be incorporated into the plans.
That would be like a walking track that would be accessible to like seniors in the neighborhood, for example.
Yes. There's been discussion again about that the fields need to be open for off-site use during the days, weekdays as well as the weekends. We've had beginning discussions about having restrooms that are associated with that usage. So those have been documented in our meeting minutes, and when we move into design, those are the items that we'll be bringing into the design. Just very briefly, we don't have anything to show for it yet, but we've had, because we're still very much in the fact-finding stage with the educational committee, we've had one initial meeting with Mr. Lafferty and some designated staff representatives, and we're going to have a second the middle of April. And we've started having some really wonderful discussions about how the classrooms will be organized on the school. And looking at them really as a series of groupings. And this goes to one of the questions that you asked earlier, Mr. Lee, about class size. These will be 960 square foot classrooms, but we're looking at them being grouped such that team teaching can take place, age groups can be in one area, small learning communities can be designed. There is a lot of research that coming out today for both middle school and high school, where if you can keep those same 100 or 125 kids together for all of their classes, that may be something that works very well for kids. So we're looking at all different ways of clustering the kids. Sixth grade at Hull, team teaches. Math and science are taught by the same teachers. So whatever kind of configuration that we come up with will be flexible enough to provide all those different opportunities as the school moves forward for another 30 years. Any questions on Hull?
Yes, we have Mrs. Reagans, then Mr. Steffen, then Dr. Ernst.
Thank you, Mr. President. The cafetorium then on this diagram would be where it says building area?
Ms. Reagans, again, this is just conceptually.
No.
We have not gone any further than what we would call bubble diagrams. So the idea is that the cafetorium would be a space that would be near the entry to the school, so that you could literally secure off the rest of the school, and the multipurpose room would be open for after-hour activities. And so generally we're saying it's near the entrance to the school.
Okay.
But that's really as far as we've gone until we get more input from the site committee.
Okay. I did want to express a little concern about the pickup drop-off entryway with the 2 lanes. That's the current arrangement at the Levy site that they're trying to use, which actually is somewhat problematic, actually, getting parents to go in the right directions and having kids being released in 2 different locations and with cars in between them and the curb and all that kind of thing. So it's something to consider in the design. Thanks.
Well, if I may respond to your question there, one thing that we've looked at pretty carefully is given the number of vehicles that we've told that would come through for morning drop-off, which is about 300. It is 2 lanes, but the way that we were proposing that this be done is that there's literally 5 cycles, and that the cars are allowed to come in, they are stopped, so that children from both rows can disembark, so that, say, the inboard lane of cars, children aren't exiting through cars that are moving. So it's literally 5 cycles, takes about 15 minutes, and all children then, and that's with a stop and start, so that their children are not moving through cars that are
So there'd be like a
going.
stop sign, having them
Well,
come
it's
in
not a
en
stop
masse
sign,
and then
it's-
leave en masse?
It's with on-site staff.
Or
and-
stop light, actually? Whatever.
And there was, the majority of the discussion was really about this parking lot. And
Because it is a problem.
given the experience and the staff's feelings were that this would work very well for them, given how Hull worked and how Levy works. And my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, Dr. Stowe, but Levy seems to work pretty well for them there, is my understanding. They clear that out, it's congested while they're waiting for kids to pick up, but nothing moves, and then
Well, it'll be
They're
interesting to see if the 300 estimate holds true. It does currently because we're busing half the kids. But if, each student has someone driving them, that's more like 800 cars. Just to throw a wrench in the works.
Well, they thought that a lot of those kids that are being, there would still be, this was still, they felt, a fairly accurate number, and we got this number from the district, from their experience before at Hull, because then a lot of kids walk and a lot of kids bike ride. That right now are
300
being
was-
bused.
300 was the actual count prior to moving to Levy. That was their count at the old Hull site in terms of cars. And we utilized that in developing the move from Hull to Levy.
Mr. Steffen.
backing up from October 2011, how long is construction on a site this big? Do you anticipate?
What do you have, Gil? 24?
That's a good question. Well, we haven't talked about the schedule yet, but one of the first things we're going to do is we're currently working with IBI to develop plans to demolish the existing school. And that's going to happen as fast as the end of this coming June is what we're shooting for, is to get that school leveled, to get it out of the way, start looking at the dirt, start working with DTSC and looking at what it's going to take to get this site environmentally friendly so we can move on into construction. And once the plans are developed, we'll start looking at developing a schedule. But we're basically going to work off the mandate, and whatever the target date is what we're going to meet. We're going to work backwards and make sure that her plans are into DSA so that we hit our target. I mean, if we have to double shift it, triples, whatever we need to do to hit that target, that's what we're going to shoot for. So we're just going to kind of work back from that end date and make it happen, and that's kind of where we're at. But until we see designs, it's kind of hard to really throw a number on it.
Okay, that's where I was heading, so when you had to submit, but you're just gonna, okay. Now, the other thing, you brought up my second question with DTSC, and I assume you're talking about environment friendly with these oil things.
Yes, and I wanted to add to my discussion to date is the RFP, the request for proposal, was issued. Responses, there were 4 responses received, and they've been reviewed by Barnhart in the district, and we're going to meet tomorrow to go over those again and select a firm.
Is this for demolition?
This is for the completion of the report required for DTSC.
Oh, okay, this is for, okay.
For the environmental.
Okay.
And so that will be done tomorrow, and I'm not sure the district's requirements before that work can be issued to proceed, but it's well within our schedule, and we initially had some real concerns that might hang us up, and it's not going to hang us up at all.
All right.
Dr. Ernst?
Just before we, oh, I'm sorry, yes, please.
Oh, yeah, just a couple of comments, and Mrs. Reagans is right. The parking is, and you've already mentioned that was one of the big issues for the committees is the parking issue. But I can tell you, Jefferson, I mean, it's all done right on the street, and it's a mess. So at least we have an opportunity to start over
Try to
here
fix
and
it, yeah.
try to fix that. But our schools were all built well before we were, as parents, driving our kids and picking them up. So those are issues that we have to deal with. Just a couple of questions then. So as we put this plan together with the traffic study and such, how are we working with the city on that?
I've spoken to the city and looked to set up a meeting with the city, but they've asked that we just email them a site plan and they will look at it. They're really busy for the next 2 months trying to get some shovel-ready projects in line to try and grab some stimulus money.
Okay.
So we've been in contact with them, and I'll probably be emailing him a PDF of the plan that you see in front of you tomorrow.
And this isn't, I mean, this plan that you have here really doesn't deviate from what is currently at the site. I mean, that's the same place that the parking lot has always been, isn't it?
There is some difference in the fact that they have the 2 lanes up against the building area.
Yeah, right,
the
but I mean,
change.
the entrance and the
Oh, no,
exit
the
are
entrance and
basically
the
the
exit.
same.
Very
Okay,
similar.
right, so, right.
Very similar.
And then finally, Dr. Mannon, we've had a variety of conversations about this process, which the board has a desire actually for us to have quite a bit more input from the community. Will you speak to that, please? And how that would look? Yeah.
When Barbara actually has a preliminary design completed, then what we intend to do with that is not only will the stakeholders at Hull use it, but also Mr. Murasucci and I indicated to the neighbors that we'll have a meeting somewhere within the community, and Barbara will be doing a presentation on the design and allow for comment. Prior to the time that Barbara has the final design, we'll also have another meeting where members of the community can see the final design for the school and make any comment.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Mannon. So, and Barbara, on your presentation, it says community presentation actually mid-May. Is that what we're shooting for?
I think it's probably going to be a little bit Probably late May, June at the
okay,
most.
okay.
And that'll
we
be
do
with a very
have-
preliminary design.
Yeah, that'll just be an opportunity for the community, the neighbors in that area to see at least where we are at this point, and then I guess we can prep them for the demolition, because that's going to be a big project.
Exactly.
So we'll talk about that at that time, Dr. Mannon, and then get more input as we work through that design a little bit more in the
That's
future.
correct. And I think we are, with the, at least the very preliminary work that Barbara's been doing, meets some of the concerns that the neighbors had with design.
Okay, very good, thank you.
Mrs. Reagans?
Just clarification on DTSC, remembering that there are people in the audience that may not know what that means. Could you tell us what that organization is?
It's the Department of Toxic Substances Control.
And that sounds as though we're building a school on a toxic something.
And it basically, all we're doing is we're picking up where the district had left off. The district had gone halfway through the process and identified the remediation that was going to be required, if any. Part of this process that will be done by the next consultant is they will go out there and they will do some soil testing and determine if any of those oil wells are still emitting any sort of gas. And if they aren't, there may be less mitigation than was anticipated. Previously, the mitigation that was anticipated is just basically a passive membrane that goes underneath the foundations of the buildings. So we'll know that better after we get the next round of
And this is to
soil
ensure
samplings.
that we're not building in a toxic way and that our students will be safe, the buildings will be
Absolutely.
safe,
That is correct.
meeting all requirements. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Lee?
Yeah, just as a follow-up, I grew up 100 yards from there. In fact, I remember when the school wasn't there, and it was just a couple of oil wells and a mini bike track, since I am very old. And so, in fact, first graduating class. But, just so everybody knows in the community, I mean, there were oil wells out there. They weren't producing chemicals. There wasn't a refinery there. There weren't those kinds of things out there. There were oil wells and a retention basin and those kinds of things. So every time we kind of have this conversation, I'm sure there's visions of,
Yes.
stacks and those kinds of things. It was just kind of like all the rest of Southeast Torrance looked at the time. They were random oil wells. So just wanted to clarify. Thank you.
So we're not talking the Belmont Learning Center of
Oh, no.
LAUSD? Okay.
No, we're not talking, no, it's Hermosa. You want to get rid of that name, no more Belmont.
Yeah.
Vista Hermosa.
Before you move on, I know that we've had discussions about how this is our only brand-new school that we're going to be building from our bonds, and that this would give us some, perhaps give us some opportunities to have something not only architecturally, aesthetically pleasing, but also in line with a lot of what's going on in the country, to have this be a green building. What design concepts are you considering at this point incorporating to make this a green building?
Well, it starts with the items that cost you nothing, which is good site design. We'll certainly look to orient these buildings to take advantage of natural daylight into the classrooms, prevailing breezes. We have a terrific opportunity in this district in that you won't be air conditioning these buildings, which is marvelous. So, and also to take the opportunity for outdoor space, trees, where we can use trees to shade as well as make those spaces that much more enjoyable. So natural daylight, prevailing breezes, operable windows, outdoor learning spaces and courtyards. Clearly the building systems will be meeting all of the they'll be constructed of the necessary requirements to make them comfortable in summer and in winter. The buildings will, of course, be heated.
So,
And even down to, we'll look and see as we start to get into the budgets. But for example, if we can use permeable concrete or permeable asphalt in the parking area, so that we can look at not only what's above ground but underground to make the site as sustainable as we can.
So in terms of trying to help the community visualize, of course, you're going to be presenting your designs very soon, but when you talk about taking advantage of natural lighting and open space and so forth, is it going to be, immediately recognizably, obviously different from our existing schools in terms of how open?
Well, I don't want to give too much away, but it will be very different than what Hull is now. Hull is, these little finger plan buildings that basically are oriented absolutely the wrong direction. I mean, the best buildings should be oriented east-west, so you get most of your light from the north, and then you shade the south side, and then you get a balanced light and the best light, and those buildings are oriented absolutely the opposite. So, and then there's really no open space between the classrooms, and everyone on the site committee is very enthusiastic about the notion of some courtyards and green space where you can look at the classroom and see trees. But in answer to your question, the site plan will be very indicative of the kind of, what's built, what's open, and the orientation of the plans. We always show a north arrow. Our site plans will show sort of the direction of the prevailing winds and the direction from which the winds go. And we're already beginning to look at that as we start to lay the buildings out.
Okay, so we'll be looking forward with anticipation. Mr. Lee?
I just thought of something, because when we talk to architects are artists, and we end up with beautiful things. And then the engineers come along, and the people who have to build it come along, and they build it the way hopefully the architect wants. And then we get it, and then we got to maintain it. And I'm hearing lots of trees and shrubs and grass and all this cool stuff that we don't do. I mean, we don't have enough people to mow the grass we have now. So I'm just a little concerned that maybe when we go through this process of making everything cool and, granted, landscaping is wonderful, only if you can maintain it. So hopefully we're talking to our district staff, and we're not ending up with, nightmares and maintenance as we go forward.
I was just going to jump in here and add that definitely checks and balances, and we're definitely involved in looking at that kind of stuff and looking at what shrubs or trees are going to be low maintenance and don't necessarily need to be watered all the time. So we're working alongside, and if we think maybe it's a maintenance nightmare, then we're going to say something and make sure that it doesn't end up on the design if it doesn't make sense for long term. So
Yeah, it's awfully hard to get kids to walk and not cut corners, and hence you end up with green areas between schools. I can think of Towers that has green areas between schools, but, they all have big X's in the middle of them because
No,
the
we
kids are cutting
totally
the
understand, Mr. Lee. I mean, we've done nothing but public schools for 25 years, and we know the budget constraints. We know maintenance is at the table with us from the get-go. And, we can't be really conscious about the work we do today, particularly in this energy environment, if our buildings aren't simple and maintainable, and they can still be, very beautiful. And a tree well-placed can go a long way and need be nothing more than a tree well-placed with some benches underneath it.
Thank you.
Okay. Fern Elementary School.
All right, Fern Elementary School. They're so delighted to have all of their campus potentially back on one site here in the near future. And I just put that up because that is one of the principal's comments. It would just really be wonderful. They've had the goal of having all the students on one campus for a very long time. Same process as Hull. Valerie Williams there is a new principal. I think this is her first year, if I'm correct. And she's embraced the process wholeheartedly. She's developed a great site committee. We have representatives from all age groups, from the neighborhood. Dr. Kim has attended every one of our meetings, and many of the district representatives as well. We just finished our second meeting with the site today. We had a lot of discussion about what was going to go into the new building, some potential modifications to the multi-purpose room that might work better for the staff now. We presented them today, but was not able to have it here for this PowerPoint, which you needed last week. The first conceptual site plan that laid out all the additional new 14 classrooms. They also wanted to see if we could find space in that building for 3 additional small offices that they need for counsel, psych, and speech, and a staff workroom. So we've been able to, we think, carve that out into the new classroom building. Let me show you. This is really the old site plan, but it's still conceptually very similar to what we showed the school district today. The blue buildings are the one-story multipurpose building, and the support building has the new food service, a restroom building, and a computer lab. Those plans were DSA approved. We do now have to go back to DSA because they were approved over 2 years ago. There's a new code that's come into play, and so there's some checking and some structural calculations that we need to redo, and there's a few modifications to that multipurpose room that can now make it more efficient under the new code that we don't have to comply with under the old code. For example, under the last code, if you were building a new multipurpose building, you could not install a lift. You had to put in a ramp inside the building. Now a lift is acceptable, so that's saved us a lot of space, and the school can use that much more to their advantage. The pink represents the location of the new classroom building that will be permanently constructed. And we've been able to sort of tighten up those dimensions so it's more cohesive and in line with the blue buildings. We don't have to have the gap in between them, which was potentially kind of a security problem for the school site. So this plan is moving along. We have one more site committee meeting that we set today for two weeks out. Which day, Gordon? 20th, April 20th, a Monday. And at that point in time, we will have 3-dimensional drawings for them. I'd like to also say that this new building in all of Hull, we are doing in what we call BIM, Building Information Modeling. It's really the way architectural drawings in the future are going. It's 3-dimensional modeling. We draw everything in a program that is 3-dimensional, and it allows us to integrate all of the systems at the same time 3-dimensionally. So one of the real benefits of that is we can develop a 3-dimensional perspective and renderings very, very quickly, which really helps the school site see what the building is going to look like. So at the April 20th meeting, we'll have some conceptual renderings of this school building, along with the multi-purpose building as well. And we get the input from the site committee, and then we'll be prepared to have a community neighborhood meeting, and we're tentatively looking at that for May 14th to be confirmed. Site security has been an issue. They were tagged this weekend. They had some graffiti on the west face of the existing building. It seems that kids can jump in through the kindergarten area, that existing little play area that's at the southeast corner of Fern and Euclid is really El Dorado. We need to correct that. So there was some consternation and concern on the school district's part, and we're going to look and see if we can mitigate that with potentially a little higher fence on the inside of that play area that's exposed to the street. So that is of a concern. There's been the desire for security cameras on the campus from the principal's point, and so Phil's been there. He knows of this request. We'll certainly look at that as we march down the cost estimate road as this project becomes more real, which is going to happen pretty quickly.
Mr. Steffen.
Yeah, one thing that's always concerned me about Fern is that it is a relatively small space, the campus itself, compared to other sites. And I don't know, what do we have over on the Greenwood Park? 5 buildings, 6 portables?
6 portable classes.
So I assume those are 30 to 1 or something like that. So you're talking 180 kids, 200 kids over there, and those kids will now come to this site. Now, those are 4th and 5th graders over there, the big kids. does this site realistically have the room to bring those children over and still have enough play space, enough getting around space for those kids to manage themselves without?
Sure think they do.
The kids do, or who's they?
Staff.
The staff thinks they do.
Staff is delighted to have those kids over.
Okay. And so when we're placing this multi-purpose building, I'm looking at this, and I don't know why it's angled at a 45-degree angle to life, but there's probably a reason to that. But
Well,
is
there
that the
is.
best use of space? Or if there's a good reason, let me know.
Well, the angled area behind in that triangular space that's created along Elm is actually the service yard. So that's going to be where the
trash and
the trash, the electrical enclosure is back
okay.
there. So there is a real reason for it. It's not
Okay.
just an architectural
And
move.
I'm looking at, now, I work in Hawthorne School District as a teacher, and I know Mr. Blue Rock, you work with Mr. Blue Rock, I know he did a number of buildings out there for us.
Mm-hmm.
And he built a number of two-story buildings out there for us. Is this a similar design on the interior? Or do you know what I'm speaking of?
Well, I do. I mean, if you're talking about Kornblum and York.
York, and that's where I work, York
Right,
and
right,
and eucalyptus, and, yeah.
Well, they will, gosh, it's been a while, Mr. Stevens. since I've
Well, they
been in
have,
those classrooms, but
there are 3 classrooms to a pod inside, 2 skinny ones and a square one in the middle with a
oh, the shared work area
shared
back
work area.
behind
Is this
them.
a similar interior design?
Not now, not at this point. The classroom, the design that we looked at today, these classrooms are actually a little more square. They're about 32 by 31, give or take.
So those are more
change.
traditional.
And they're a portable is 24 by 40. So these are a little more square, which actually provides the classroom with a little more flexibility.
Right.
And we're not locked into that 24 by 40 since this is not a modular
Okay.
manufactured building anymore. But there is no shared space in between them.
Okay.
They
no,
are
that's
more
not a problem,
conventional
yeah.
in those terms.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
One thing, just in answer to your space that we discussed today, is there is the opportunity to move these buildings about 5 or 6 feet closer to Elm Avenue than in the previous design. Because it was a modular building, there were construction issues that we had to meet, so the buildings had to move inboard a little bit. But we discussed that today, that these buildings could potentially move about 5 or 6 feet further east and give that much more room back into the site, and also not create this little bowling alley area that's between the building and the chain link fence. So we're going to be looking at that after our meeting today.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Lee?
Really, after Torrance High, this is our most architecturally historical built structure that we have. Possible exception of the EMB building, but that's, just teasing. But anyway, it's getting late. I assume that we're going to respect the architecture that's there, not, from what I've heard internally, we are. I just kind of wanted to get it on the record.
Absolutely. And I believe you were the one that had the comment at our last meeting about your legacy here of Irving Gill and the
Yes.
architecture within in Torrance. So, yes, in fact, the multipurpose building, as designed, has a gable tile roof. So, and some exposed wood beams, some nice big deep wood beams that cover the lunch shelter. And the classroom building, again, it was one of the reasons that we were delighted to see that you wanted to go with conventional construction, because we can control that sensitivity towards the existing aesthetics even more.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Any other questions regarding Fern? Do we have closing comments before we open it to the public?
I just want to say thank you for listening, and that pretty much concludes our presentation, and yes, we'd like to move forward if there isn't any other questions from the board.
All right. Well, since the members in the audience have been patiently waiting, if there's no objections from the board, I'd like to open it up to the audience first. I know, gentlemen, why don't you come up first? And do we have cards today? Shall we just do it the city? Okay.
Okay. My name is Brad Moylan. I'm the chair of the Torrance Youth Council, and I'm also a senior at South. I have a couple of questions on a couple of different issues. First, I'm wondering how much, if any, student input is planned or has taken place or is planned on a lot of these site committees and things like that, especially in the high schools. So I guess that's first. Do you want me to list all my questions? Or do you want me to go one at a time?
Yeah, since we may be able to answer them together, why don't you just identify all your questions?
Okay. Second, I'm wondering what kind of security lighting is planned at all of these sites. I know many of them have problems at night with security issues, and in the Torrance strategic plan, we identified a lot of lighting things in cooperation between the city and the district, and I'm wondering if we've looked into any of that. Also at South, you were talking about the elevators and contemplating whether having an elevator in each of the 5 two-story classrooms or walkways or something like that. And I'm wondering if these planned elevators would be general, open elevators, or whether they would need to be specifically, if they've got a key so that they're only for the handicapped, or something like that. Because I think if they're open, that cause a lot of problems. You've got 2,400 kids walking around. I think that's it.
Okay, great questions. Dr. Pan?
In answer to your first question, the site committee has met a couple of times. I would suggest if you want to participate, you might want to talk to Mr. McDowell. In answer to your second question about lighting, there is security lighting at all school sites, if I recall correctly, as part of the modernization piece, because lighting is a problem, especially for meetings. And third, Dr. Stabler was nodding his head. These elevators are not for general use. They're for students with disabilities, and therefore they would be keyed.
Okay. How much? I understand that the site committees have met with the architects and things like that, but I'm wondering, are these site committees strictly faculty, administrators, and parents? Or, especially on the high school sites, are there students involved? I feel like,
as I indicated to you, the one at South has faculty, administration, parents, and staff.
okay.
So if you would like to participate, I would suggest you may go in and talk to Mr. McDowell about it.
I mean, I'm graduating 3 months, but I'm wondering, because this is a long-term project.
Well, I understood, but still yet, you could have
Yeah.
that conversation with him.
Okay. Thank you.
No, I think you raise a good point, and I would encourage, if not yourself, someone else at South High School to, as well as all of our high schools, or all of our schools for that matter, if they have an interest to participate in this process. We have Mr. Lee, then Mrs. Reagans.
I think from a policy standpoint, student body president ought to be part of the process. I mean, just from a policy part, just so that we've got a little input, as we go through this process, at least at the high school, because they're the end users. And, I just think it's a good idea if we can do that from a policy standpoint, but I'm only one person up here, so I don't know if we got nodding heads or not.
Do you want to make a motion to encourage site
I
committees?
think we can.
I don't think we have to.
Oh, okay,
I wouldn't
we haven't,
do that,
because
but
we-
I think, I see
Not on the
nodding
agenda,
heads.
okay. All right, so because we didn't notice it pursuant to the Brown Act, we can't make motions tonight, it's purely for discussion only. Mrs. Reagans.
And I want to second that I think students should be involved. And in fact, we did have students apply for the Citizens Oversight Committee, and I put a student's name forward for that. Did not end up happening, but I do think students are critical to this process. So please pursue it, Mr. Moylan.
And also, Ms. Muha, you are institutionalized into this process as the student representative, and so we encourage you, not only for North High School, but for all the schools, if you have any thoughts or ideas or suggestions which you think are particularly relevant from the student's perspective, please jump in. Okay. Anyone else? There was another hand. Yes, please come forward.
Good evening, Mr. President and members of the board. My name is Robert Johnson, and I'm a resident of Torrance. I live in Old Torrance. And at the previous meeting, there was some discussion, or at least mention, on the part of the board about utilizing local services or local entities that may be involved in these projects. And I myself am a DSA school inspector. I have been for 25 years. And I'm currently on an $84 million job that'll be ending in the middle of the following year. And of course, we'd like to be involved with, possibly, with some of these projects. I don't have a clue to who to get in touch with. If anybody can provide that information, that'd be great.
Mr. Johnson, what I'd like you to do is, if you go on the Torrance Unified School District website, and you go in, there's actually Barnhart Construction Company has their logo on there. Click on that, and it'll get you right into them, and you can put your name in there, and they'll be glad to work with you.
Thank you very much.
All right. Any other comments, questions? I'd like to acknowledge that and thank, we have several members of our Bond Oversight Committee, our community volunteers who are serving as the watchdogs for how we spend the bond funds, and so we thank all of you for coming out tonight. Any other questions from the board? If not, thank you very much.
You need to make a motion.
Yes, we need a motion. Your favorite motion,
One
Mr. Lee.
right ahead of me.
I move that we end the meeting.
Second.
All those in favor? Meeting is adjourned.